Hey guys, welcome back to an episode by BW2. Finally, I know at this point we're only making like 2 videos a year practically. It's very busy nowadays with work and baby and all that, you know. But today we finally have another A24 ranking video. I know we also have not done one of these in like 3 years, I think. But I felt that it was probably long enough, and I went through, scrolled through all my IMDb ratings, and discovered that I was at 23 A24 movies when I watched one of these. Can't remember which one. Oh yeah, A Different Man, I believe. So I was like, okay, one more, and I guess it'll be time to make another one. So yeah, I watched Heretic last night, and yeah, now we're making this video. So the last one was on April 2022. So yeah, it is almost April 2025 now. So welcome back to another video. We're gonna do this one a little bit different than the last two, because I know the last two I like ranked everyone and then I put a clip of the movie for every single one, if not almost every single one. This one I'm not gonna put the clips, and just to save both me time and the video time, because these videos don't get like a ton of views. So I'm sorry, but putting that much time into the YouTube video to get like 100 views is not can't really do that with my time constraints nowadays, but I still want to rank them. The only other thing that I'm going to do differently is I used to like really summarize the movie and talk about them forever, so the videos were like 40 minutes long. This time I'm going to do my best to just kind of talk about it a little bit and rank it. So here's the 24. I got the list on my phone. I don't know if I usually do it in order of the time I watched them, but I'm going to do that this time. I got the list on my phone right now. So this is an order of everything I watched it, starting with Men. That shows how dated this is, because Men came out, I believe, in 2022. I went and watched it in theaters by myself. So another thing with a lot of these videos, or a lot of these movies, some of these movies I haven't watched in like almost literally 3 years. And I have seen, if you guys know me, you know how much movies and shows I watch. I have seen literally possibly hundreds of movies and shows since some of these movies. And the only other thing is, as you guys know, I don't rank A24 shows, because I believe at the time of the first two videos there was like Euphoria season 1 and 2, I believe. I did watch those, of course. And then there was also ever since then there's been a couple more shows. There's been The Idol, which, if you just want my quick thoughts, I thought The Idol was pretty terrible, to be honest. Had The Weeknd and Lily Rose Depp. I don't know, it was just kind of awkward, didn't really go anywhere. I don't know. Definitely wasn't a huge fan of that one. The soundtrack was good. It was like completely made by The Weeknd, so I love him. So it was a good soundtrack, I would say. He practically made a whole album for it. And then we had The Curse, which I don't know. I don't know if I didn't get the humor. I also did not like that one. I don't know what it is. I love like every single A24 movie. Like I always say, like they don't make like any bad, and I either like or love every movie that they make. Shows, I don't know what it is. I don't usually like their shows. I like Euphoria, but everything else, it's just, I don't know. Because the other one was The Curse. I don't know if I just didn't get the humor, but it was just really dry and awkward and didn't really go anywhere, and I don't know. I was kind of bored. It had Emma Stone and Benny Safdie, and the main guy who's like, I believe, a comedian, Nathan Fielder. I don't know. I just didn't really get it. But yeah, so that was it for the shows. So getting into the movies, first we have Men right here. Again, I went and saw in theaters, horror movie about like the manipulation done by men in toxic relationships, basically. It's basically like a man or a husband like kills himself because of his wife and comes back through the form of different, like, more and more screwed up forms of men, I guess. Really creepy, pretty well done. A pretty darn gross hand splitting scene. I remember enjoying this quite a bit. The only thing that wasn't enjoyable was I had this like wild cold at the time, where like it was just the worst throat tickle of my life. So I was like holding back to not like have coughing fits in the back of the theater because there's like two other people in the theater and it was really awkward. But yeah, I don't know what that cold was, but it felt terrible. But anyway, Men, I would say probably goes. I would say probably A tier. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was definitely like quiet and kind of drawn out, but yeah, if you just really get into it, it was pretty darn good. Um, Pretty darn good, creepy little horror movie there. So next up is Everything Everywhere All at Once, probably the most popular movie on this or on this list we have today. It of course won Best Picture. It was actually an Oscar sweep. It won like 11 or 13 Oscars, I believe, including Best Picture. It's a pretty long movie, but of course I've seen much longer. But it is very entertaining. I think one of the most entertaining and kind of exhausting in a good way movies I've ever seen. Lots going on. Quite a bit of I can see why they won all the Oscars. There's a lot that they put into this movie. I would say this one goes into S tier. Like, this is just as iconic as A24 gets. Like, I feel like if you're not into A24, if there's movies that you have seen, it's definitely Everywhere All at Once is definitely one of them. It also finally got, I believe his name's Ki Hai Kwan or something. He's the kid from Indiana Jones 2. Finally got him his his Oscar, and a couple others, of course. But yeah, basically like this couple trying to like rekindle their relationship in life through the multiverse. It's a multiverse movie, but done really well. I think the best multiverse movie that there has been, since that's been a pretty popular concept these past few years. So yeah, that one, very happy to finally see it. I can't remember if it came to our theater because I always talk about it. A24 movies never come to my theater. But eventually I rented it once it finally came out. But yeah, next up is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I went and saw it with my mom. It's actually a whodunit murder mystery, but like based for like Gen Z. It's got Pete Davidson and a lot of other like popular like young adult actors, or not necessarily young adult, but like 20, 30-year-olds. But yeah, it's really definitely Gen Z, but I think like done well. It's not like like millennial humor based around Gen Z or whatever that they usually do. And it's kind of funny because the ending like reveal, if you haven't seen it yet, is kind of like just dumb, and it's just like, bro. But I think it's really funny. And yeah, overall I think it's pretty good. I watched it again with Lainey at one point, so I believe I've seen this one twice. And yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit both times. I'd probably put this one in A tier. It's got a really good Charlie XCX song for the credits too, so that's pretty cool. Next up is Saint Maud, right here. Another wild religious A24 movies. I like those ones because honestly I'm not like into religion that much myself. I don't really like believe much of it, and I like the movies that really question it, and A24 does it pretty well. And this is another one, kind of slow but eerie, and the ending is pretty darn wild. And yeah, I don't like super remember this one, but I do remember like enjoying it a bit, but it's not one that I would like really rewatch, I don't think, so I'm gonna go C tier with that one. But yeah, next up is In Fabric. I definitely remember this one. I've only seen it once, but I think if I remember correctly, it was before I moved into my apartment. I watched it by myself on the couch, and I think I finished it at like 11 or 12. And yeah, it is probably the most eerie, just creepy movie on here. It's about like a dress that was made in like this weird like clothing store, that basically goes through and in different ways like murders its owners, until the very end, where like somebody like keep trying to like bring it back, and everybody that works at the store is just super weird. And then the dress eventually like gets super pissed and like burns down the whole store, and then they like go down this elevator seeing people making the dress out of like people's blood and whatnot, and this woman's just creepily staring into the camera as it goes down the elevator with this terrible alarm noise, and it just like it's later like she's descending into hell. Yeah, very creepy movie. I'd put it in A tier. It's definitely pretty. It feels. I don't know if I can't remember if it is long, but it feels pretty long. Not super rewatchable, but definitely for a one-time watch. Definitely very memorable. And one of the most eerie, creepy movies A24's made, I think. And I don't think I'll ever get that ending alarm noise out of my head. Next up is Slice. I barely remember this one. I believe it has something to do with zombies. It's got Chance the Rapper in it, and Zazie Beetz, which Zazie Beetz is cool. I'm not sure how I feel about Chance the Rapper. I don't remember enjoying this one a lot. It kind of sucks because, as you guys know, I always said, like, there's no, like, bad A24 movies or ones that I didn't really enjoy, but in the first video. Second one, there was, like, a couple that I was like, they were alright, but it's whatever. This one, there are a few ones that I'm just, like, straight up, like, I don't know how I felt about that one. It wasn't that great, because at this point, I will have seen, hold on, I'm terrible at math. Whatever 24 times 3 is. At this point, I have now seen 72 A24 movies. So there's sure to be a few stinkers in there somewhere. But yeah. So, yeah. Slice, I'm going to go ahead and put in D. Just, as far as I remember, like, it was quirky, but it wasn't, like, I don't know. It wasn't very memorable, and I thought it was kind of dumb. I don't know. Next up is another one that you probably have seen by now, Pearl, part of the X trilogy. We rated X in the last one. At this point, I've seen that one so long ago. This is probably my most rewatched A24 set of movies, because I watched X, like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times by now with different people. Pearl, I think I've watched 3 times, once in the theater, and then, like, 2 other times with other people. And then Maxine I've seen once now, just because it came out the most recent. But yeah, I also now own the whole trilogy on Blu-ray, which is cool. I don't buy a ton of movies anymore, but I wanted to get this one on Blu-ray, so that's cool. But yeah, so we rated X last one. Next one is Pearl, which in the trilogy, Pearl actually comes first, then X, then Maxine. So yeah, so next up is Pearl. It's the origin story of Pearl, of course, the main killer villain in X. And yeah, this is, I believe, the most favorite of the trilogy, the most iconic, and the most liked, and just whatever. I don't know. I feel like at this point, I know I've been mentioning it quite a bit, but in A24, if there's like one movie like casual viewers have seen, it's probably Pearl. So yeah, so I don't even feel like I need to talk about it too much. I liked it quite a bit. I will probably put it in S tier. Of the trilogy, I would probably say Pearl is probably my favorite too. And then Maxine and X, I don't know, they're very close. It's kind of hard to rank those two against each other, but we'll get on to Maxine in a little bit. But yeah, Pearl, just very well done. Most of it is in the daytime, which a lot of people cannot make good horror films in the daytime. That's why another reason I love A24. They can do horror whenever. Because you also have Hereditary, not Hereditary. You also have Midsommar, one of my favorite A24 movies, my favorite, like, mindfuck movie that there is. Out there in A24. And they're all, like, completely during the daytime. Like, there's nighttime scenes, but all the horror is, like, in the daytime. Which, outside of A24, I don't think anybody really does it right. So yeah, next up is Stars at Noon. Again, I don't really remember this. This one I watched I was moved into the apartment at this point, but this was like at some point when I was a bachelor living here by myself. I watched it at night. I think I was dozing off here and there. I remember it being really boring. Honestly, I can't remember what this one's about. I just watched it like one night. I was like, oh, cool, an A24 movie. But I like barely remember it. I'm searching it up on IMDb right now to see. A young American journalist stranded in present-day Nicaragua falls for an enigmatic Englishman who seems to like her best chance of escape. As soon as she realizes, however, that he may be in even greater danger than she is. Okay. So yeah, it's got Margot Qualley, which I know she was pretty big in the Oscars this year, and Benny Safdie and whatnot. Love the Safdie brothers. So yeah, I don't know. I remember it being like artsy, but very unrememberable. I remember it feeling really long, and I don't know. It kind of reminds me. It kind of gave me the same feeling of like Locke, the one with Tom Hardy that I ranked last time. I believe that was my only one in D tier from the last video, if I remember correctly. But yeah. But next up is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Another pretty iconic one. One of the most quirky, cute little movies I've ever seen. It's about a little seashell that has a googly eye and little shells, and he just gets on the news and goes around his house going on adventures and stuff, and he wants to live a bigger life, but he's just a little shell. This one, it was based off like a short film, I believe, but yeah, it is just one of the cutest little movies I've ever seen. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I'll probably put it in B tier, just because, like, I don't know, it's cute, it's artsy, but I don't think it's like super rewatchable. And I don't know, I just think it's like right in the middle. Like, I didn't absolutely love it, but I didn't like not like it. But yeah, it's very cute. Definitely check that one out. Next up is Red Rocket. It's a comedy movie about like a former male porn star going back to like live in his raggedy old town, and he's just kind of like a terrible narcissist and whatnot, and nobody really likes him. And yeah, I remember it being decently funny. I think I liked it, but I didn't like love it. But it was for how gritty and like kind of gross it was or whatever. Not like necessarily gross, but just how, I don't know, the grittiness of it. It looked really well made. So it has that too. I actually watched, I believe, the same night as Marcel the Shell. I believe I watched it like right after, and I will probably put it in the same rank with it there. So yeah, so next up is Beau is Afraid. I was very excited to see this one. It's directed by my beloved Ari Aster, who directed Hereditary and Midsommar and whatnot. Of course, some of my favorite A24 movies right there, so I was very excited to see this one. This one is like 3 hours long. There's a lot going on in it. It's got Joaquin Phoenix. It's basically a movie about like motherly son mental abuse and what comes of that. And yeah, he's just like a raging schizophrenic or something. And yeah, there's just like massive like set pieces stuff going on. I honestly enjoyed the first third of the movie the most, I would say. The last third is kind of quiet, and you really gotta fight to stay awake and pay attention, I would say. But yeah, overall really good. I would say for being 3 hours long, it uses it well. And it felt like watching like a wild, weird stage play. And the first third is just like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I would say still out of his movies, just like those three that I'm thinking off the top of my head, I would say that I enjoy Hereditary and Midsommar more. But yeah, I'm gonna probably put this one in A tier there. Priscilla. It's basically an Elvis movie, but from the point of view of his girl Priscilla. It's got Jacob Elordi playing Elvis, which I thought he did a great job. I've really enjoyed everything he's done, like since Euphoria. Like Saltburn was pretty darn cool. I didn't like love it as much as many other people did, but I thought it was really good. Jacob Elordi did great. This one he did great as well. And yeah, just a really good movie, and kind of shows a side of Elvis's story that like nothing else really has. Like, unless you're like a big Elvis fan and like really know everything about him and research, like this movie does something that like no other Elvis coverage has done. Because I believe a year or two before this is when the Elvis movie came out, and that one's just like, yeah, Elvis is like cool, like he's perfect, his mom is weird, but yeah, we love Elvis, he's like this badass, all that. This one like shows like, I don't know. So yeah, that one I will probably put in B tier. It's pretty quiet, and you kind of just watch it once. I feel like it's not like a movie that you really rewatch. But yeah, overall pretty well made, and really pretty. And yeah, next up is The Iron Claw. This was another pretty iconic one. It's got Zac Efron uh, Jeremy Allen White, all them. Basically a movie about the brothers that their dad wanted them to get into wrestling, and he was like super hard on them and pushed them, and yeah, it's really depressing. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't really want to spoil it because it is one of the more recent A24 films on this list. But yeah, really good. My only complaint is that I feel like it went really quick, so I couldn't like latch on to any of the characters as much as I feel like I was supposed to. So I don't feel like the deaths and whatnot hit me as hard as they should have. But yeah, Zac Efron, I think one of his best roles, if not his best, in my opinion. He got absolutely like jacked for this movie. Kind of looks like Lord Farquaad, but it's whatever. Jeremy Allen White, I've absolutely loved him. Of course, in Shameless and The Bear. And yeah, now he's in The Iron Claw. And yeah, really excited to see what he does next. I really love Jeremy Allen White. I know he's usually just like a depressed, yelling Chicago man, but I don't know. I think he's a great actor. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I just feel like it should have hit me harder than it did. I might need to rewatch it at some point, but as for right now, I'm going to put it probably in B there. Next up is Civil War. No, not Captain America Civil War, just Civil War. This one, I feel like if you've seen the movie Nightcrawler, I've seen it a few times. I absolutely love that movie. If you like Nightcrawler, you'll probably like this movie. I believe it was directed, if not written, by Alex Garland, who did Annihilation and whatnot. And I believe Men as well. But yeah, overall, I've been loving what Alex Garland does. He is really, really good at what he does, and Civil War is no different. If you watch Nightcrawler and like that, you'll like this one. It's kind of the same concept in ways. It's basically like people being manipulated into, or basically a person being manipulated into getting into very dangerous situations, but as long as they're getting the news coverage shot, that's all that matters. No matter who dies, what happens, all that. Very artsy film. I love how it's shot. I love how chaotic it gets. The acting. Yeah. I believe her name is Emma Watson. No, not Emma Watson. Hold up. Let me search up this real quick. Kirsten Dunst. I don't know why I got those two confused. Probably my favorite Kirsten Dunst performance in a few years at least. If not in a while. Probably since her other movie. Hold up, I'm searching up like a lot of stuff as I'm going through this. Probably my favorite performance of hers since Melancholia. That's what I was thinking of. So yeah, overall, I love this movie quite a darn bit. Yeah, I just love the style. I love those movies. I rated this one pretty darn high. Yeah, this one is one of the more recent, definitely one of the most recent movies on this list. So if you haven't seen this one, definitely check it out. Yeah, that one, probably going to put this one up in S tier, honestly. Like, I enjoyed this one. It kept me really glued to the screen. I loved that one a lot. Also, if you haven't seen Nightcrawler, it's not A24, but it's got Jake Gyllenhaal. I've watched it like a few times. Basically like that one's like the Civil War's about like a war, I don't know what they're called, a war photographer or something. They go through and take pictures and whatnot, videos, everything during time of war. But this one, it's not like an actual war. It's literally like America I can't remember if it was like martial law, but it's like America during like a martial law type event. But Nightcrawler is just about like a news reporter that starts his own news business and goes way too far to get like shots of crimes and stuff going on. But if you haven't seen either of those, check them out. Next up is I Saw the TV Glow. It's directed by, I believe, a transgender director. I also watched their other movie, We're All Going to the We're All Going to the World's Fair. Right after this movie, I watched them like back to back. That one is not A24 though, but this one is. It's basically about like they're not a couple, but it's just a dude friend and a girlfriend, like bonding over this like show when they're kids, and it's just like this like in their mind this like creepy, like grotesque monster show, but like aimed at kids. And then as they grow up together, they kind of like grow apart. But the dude like keeps watching the show, and then as he grows up, he like sees that it's actually just like this weird like innocent kids show, and he's like, why was I so intrigued by this and whatnot. So I don't know. It's kind of like a metaphor for like changing as you get older and like seeing things differently and whatnot. It's really eerie, kind of quiet, but I like the style of it. I would put it in like C tier though, just because I don't know. It like I love the style of it, the concept, but it's just I don't think the acting was like necessarily the strongest, and it's just really quiet, and you really gotta try and pay attention. Same thing with We're All Going to the World's Fair. Yeah, very quiet movies and not super rewatchable. But next up is Dream Scenario. It's got Nicolas Cage. He's been doing some banger movies recently. We also watched Long Legs recently, which again isn't A24, but a really good horror movie. But Dream Scenario, it's basically like him as a college professor who keeps like showing up in like wild scenarios in his like students' dreams and stuff. Very weird. Kind of feels almost like the show that I was talking about earlier from A24 that I wasn't a huge fan of, The Curse. It kind of feels like that, but almost like done better. But yeah, I like this one a decent amount. Probably gonna put it here in not A tier. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Yeah, again, you gotta kind of pay attention to it, and it's like kind of quiet, but if you do watch it intently, it's decent. So next up is Maxine. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. It is the finishing part to the X trilogy. Again, I believe this is the only time A24 has done sequels. As far as I'm aware, they usually just do one-off movies, which is what I love about them. They're not like franchising or doing sequels. They just make super unique like one-off movies. But this is the one exception, the X trilogy. This is the final one. Of course, X and Pearl were filmed like back to back or like at the same time. They were released in the same year. But Maxine took a couple more years to come out. He filmed it after. But this one is about not Pearl. I can't remember her. Can't remember her name. It's in the title. This one is about Maxine after the events of X. A few years later, going to Hollywood, finally achieving her dream of being a star, which was also Pearl's dream that she never achieved, but Maxine did. And this one is about her finally confronting that. And in the trailer, if you haven't seen it, again, it's more recent, so I don't want to spoil it. But if you haven't seen it, the trailers lead you to believe that it's about her facing the Night Stalker. But if you watch it, you'll actually see that it is quite the opposite. And there's actually a whole villain plot twist that I guess I probably should have seen it coming, but I didn't really. It was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I didn't know how they were going to do the violence, because the first two were really violent. This one I was like, they're literally in Hollywood. Like, how are they going to do like tons of violence without like the cops getting involved or whatever? But it is actually probably the most violent of the trilogy, believe it or not. But yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit. Again, I would say Pearl's my favorite, but this one is about equal with X or so. So this one I'm probably gonna I'll probably put it in A tier, just because it's just right before Pearl, I would say. But yeah, again, very happy I've finally seen that trilogy and whatnot. So next up is Life After Beth. Lainey wanted to watch this one. I thought it was newer. It actually came out back in 2013, I believe, which is the year that A24 was founded. So it was actually, I believe, one of A24's first movies. Or they were founded in 2012, sorry. But either way, I believe this was actually one of A24's more recent movies for sure. It's got Dane DeHaan, which he's rarely in movies anymore, and Aubrey Plaza. But yeah, honestly, I usually like Dane DeHaan, which I did in this movie. I think he was probably my more favorite part about this movie. But I also loved him in Chronicle. and I thought he was decent in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 even. But other than that, I haven't seen him in much. I haven't enjoyed him in much else. I have like the City of a Thousand Planets or whatever it was called. Um, but yeah, and then Aubrey Plaza. I don't know how I usually feel about her. I think she's usually I don't know. She definitely, I feel like, caters to young, like late teenager females more, because she is very in these earlier movies she's very like obnoxious and like loud and whatnot, and she definitely is in this movie. Um, I did like her in Ingrid Goes West and whatnot though. But yeah, overall I thought this movie was like decent. It's kind of like Pet Sematary, like um, his like girlfriend dies and then she like reappears back alive, and he's like, what's going on here? And then he realizes that other people are starting to come back, but they're like insufferable. They're not like good people anymore. So yeah, so a lot like Pet Sematary, but with like humans. It's supposed to be like a quirky comedy, and yeah. But overall, I think I will put that one in C tier. It was just good, I suppose. But the next up is The Death of Dick Long. This one is about like they have like a little small town band, and one of their bandmates like ends up dying one night when they're like hanging out, and like they didn't like directly do it, but they know how it happened, and so the main dude is like trying to hide from the cops that he knows what happened and whatnot, and yeah, I also thought this one was newer. This one actually came out a couple years ago, but I saw it and watched it. So yeah, overall, I thought this one was decent. It takes place a lot like in the same house and whatnot. But the ending kind of had a similar feel to the Florida Project. If you remember that, I believe I ranked that on the first or second video. But yeah, just kind of a hopeful yet dreadful ending, I guess. But yeah, overall, I thought it was like decent. I'm gonna put that one in C tier too. It's nice watch like once, but yeah. But next up is Love Lies Bleeding, another more recent one. This one was pretty darn good, I would say. Definitely really weird. Of course, I mean, it's A24. A lot of their movies are super weird. But yeah, it's got Kirsten Stewart, one of her best performances in a while, I would say. And Dave Franco. Dave Franco's pretty gross in this movie, but he did really well. Katie O'Brien, who this was I believe, one of her only roles that I've seen her in. I don't think I've seen her in much. But yeah, she also I believe she also played. Oh no, I thought she played Supergirl. That was a different one. She was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and The Mandalorian. So yeah, I haven't seen her in much. Those are the only three things I've seen her in. But yeah, it's basically like kind of like the dangers of I was gonna say abusive parents, but like her dad in this is a straight up serial killer. But yeah, and also like the dangers of toxic gym influence and steroids, which I've also this year recently got like heavy into, like working out and building up my body, not bodybuilding, but building it up. So yeah, this was an interesting movie to watch, and yeah, really weird, but really well made, kind of eerie. But yeah, I think the acting was great, and I think it was pretty enjoyable. It really gets you into it. But I'm probably gonna put this one in a B tier, because again, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like great. But it was definitely quite an enjoyable watch, I would say. But yeah, definitely very gritty looking too as well. So next one is one that I was very hyped to see. We Live in Time. I was very excited to see when it came to Max. It's another one of those like really, because a lot of people only know A24 for horror, and I'm always like, they make much more than that. This is definitely much more than that. This one is a really like sad but hopeful like love story. There's nothing horror about it, and I mean, unless if you consider like cancer battles horror, then I guess it could be a horror movie for you. But yeah, it's basically these two people fall in love after she hits him with his car, and she's like an aspiring cook, or like a chef, but then she figures out that she has cancer, so then it like shows their life as she battles with cancer and whatnot. Pretty simple concept, but I like how they uh, put it together. It jumps around time, so you definitely have to pay attention to it because it starts in midway in the relationship, and it jumps around. Sometimes they have a kid, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the kid's older, sometimes she's younger. But yeah, it jumps around time, which I don't know. Sometimes I don't like when they do that, but sometimes they do it well. This one they did it really well. You just gotta pay attention because if you don't, then you might be like, okay, what time zone are we in? But yeah, I also really like the ending because there's a lot of movies with cancer battles, and this one, and usually I feel like it ends like they're slowly dying in bed, surrounded by the people they love, and like it's just the classic cancer ending. But this one I feel like did it really well. I honestly personally like how A24 does like the confusing endings where if you're really paying attention you'll like kind of get it, and they kind of like leave it up to your own interpretation. But I know some people don't really like that, but I think these three movies right here have that ending where they're kind of just like, you either like, we're not going to treat you dumb, you know how it ended, or like leave this up to your own interpretation, like what do you think, how do you think it ended. So that one's kind of like this. I really like how it ended. And yeah, Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh, both absolutely amazing performances. Pretty darn sad, but yeah, really good. It's especially sad because like, I don't know, just I see a lot of myself in Andrew Garfield in this movie, how he treats his, or just not how he treats her, but how he is as a dad. I don't know, it just reminds me of myself a lot. So yeah, this one I'm probably also going to put in S tier there. I'm glad that it lived up to my hype because it did not come to my theater. If it did, it was in there for like a weekend or something. I don't even know. Because again, like 90% of these movies don't come to my theater. But yeah, I was very excited. Saw like on a Snapchat ad that it was finally in on Max. So I hopped right on that. So next up is the last. I don't know why I straight up skipped Climax. Climax was actually the fourth movie on this list. Sorry about that. So the fourth movie that I watched, Climax, I guess we'll do that one real quick. I watched this movie like 3 years ago at this point. So yeah, we'll rank this one right now. Climax is about like a movie. It's all in French, I believe. So there's subtitles, but there's actually not a ton of talking in the movie. It's mainly music and screaming. It's a movie about like these people like gathering in like on top of like a wintry snowy mountain, having this like party in this like big ol' like ballroom like event center, and then somebody like puts, I believe it was LSD or something in the punch bowl, and everybody was just chugging that stuff, and it's like everybody is just absolutely like tripping off pure LSD or something, and yeah, it doesn't end well because they're like a whole bunch of, I believe it was like a dance team or something, partying it up. So yeah, so like doesn't play out well. They're all a whole bunch of like mid 20-year-olds too. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's quite disturbing. It definitely like it. I don't know. It definitely does not make you feel like you want to do those crazy psychedelic drugs because it doesn't really end well for anybody. As far as I remember, if you haven't seen this movie, there's a slight spoiler right now. As far as I remember, I don't think anybody lives. I can't remember, or it does end, and there's like some people, and they finally wake up, and they're like, "What the hell just happened?" I can't really remember, but I do remember enjoying this one quite a bit. Again, it is just like screaming and music the whole movie. But yeah, definitely a chaotic, disturbing movie. I'm probably gonna put this one in B tier. Because you kind of like watch it, you get disturbed, you're like, what on earth did I just watch? And you go from there. But yeah, so finishing off with the last two, these ones, Heretic, I just watched last night, and A Different Man, I watched like a week ago. So yeah, A Different Man, it was up for the Oscar for Best Makeup, I believe, which it lost to The Substance, I believe. But yeah, I believe that was the only Oscar this one was up for. But it's got Sebastian Stan, I really love the roles he's been doing outside the MCU. Because of course he was in the Donald Trump movie. I can't remember what it was called. I haven't seen that one yet. But he was also in Fresh, which I absolutely love that movie. This one, which was pretty darn good. And he played Tommy Lee in Pam and Tommy, that little short series. I thought he was absolutely great in that. Just a couple others. He's been really doing well with these like smaller indie movies or whatever. And this one is about him. He has like elephant's disease or whatever it's called. His face is really deformed, and he gets this he gets with this doctor that gives him this stuff to like get rid of it, and it just like slowly like falls off and whatnot. You can tell he's like in pain, but he knows what he's doing it for. And he's like an aspiring like stage actor. So he figures like if he gets more handsome, doesn't have that disease, then he'll get more roles and he'll be better off. But then he soon realizes as he meets another person that has elephant's disease, who actually does in real life, he's an actual actor with the disease, which is pretty cool. He realizes that people were only interested in him not because of his acting talent, but because of that he looked like a freak, and they only wanted to use him for that. So he started wearing like a fake mask, and people were like, well, why are you wearing a mask? And he's like, I thought that's what you wanted. And then he sees that the dude with the actual disease still is now getting all the attention, and so he gets jealous, and his life is like falling apart because he thought that he fixed what he thought was broken, basically. So yeah, definitely like this movie. I thought that at first I didn't realize that I saw the poster on Max, and I didn't even realize that it was that movie because it looked like it was a movie from the 90s. But then I was like, oh, it's a different man. We need to watch that. Yeah, the movie is also made the same way. It's very like gritty looking, and it just the style, how it was shot, the filters, whatever, the acting, everything, like it feels like straight ripped out of like 1993. Like, I don't know, if you like didn't know the actors or when it was made and whatnot, I would feel like if you're like clueless going into this movie, you might like think that it was from like the 90s. But yeah, definitely pretty good. Very, very weird. A lot more like quirky than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, overall, I'm probably going to put this one in B tier as well. Pretty good. Pretty quick. It's a shortish movie. But yeah, really like the style and the story. It's pretty simple. Ended in a pretty like crazy way. Again, it kind of leaves it up to your own interpretation. Although in a way, it's basically like if you really understand like jealousy and whatnot, the ending is basically like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. But yeah, I'm not going to spoil too much just because that's a very more recent one. And last up is Heretic. You might have seen right here, there was just an ad for it on Max. This one like just came to Max, which is great. Me and Lainey have been waiting for this one to come out for a while because I can't remember if it came to our theater again. If it did, it was for like a week. But I didn't watch it, and I didn't want to rent it for like $20. So we were just waiting, but I was searching up because Max, it used to be Hulu, Showtime was the home of A24 movies. That's where they all went. That's why I used to pay for Showtime, but I don't pay for Showtime anymore because like they don't have anything for me anymore. Now Max is actually the home of A24. They have a deal together. That's where all the A24 movies go, which is good because all I was using Max for beforehand was like DC content basically. So that's cool. Yeah, finally came out. We watched it last night. Again, another like religion question movie. This one is about it's very recent, so I'm not gonna spoil too much, but it's basically about like what's the one true religion, and that like there's like not, because all we're really trying to do is capitalize off each other and use other people's ideas, and we're all just trying to control each other. So yeah, that's basically the what it's about. It's got Hugh Grant, very very good role for him. I feel like he usually does more comedic stuff, but yeah, he did absolutely amazing in this film, as well as the two female actors. I don't think I've seen anything else with them in it, but yeah. Very cool set design too. It pretty much takes place. There's like a couple shots like at the church and like outside, but pretty much the rest of the movie takes place in his house. It's kind of like not necessarily a labyrinth, kind of like escape rooms more, where they go into the new room by like asking, not getting, by getting asked questions and like figuring out his kind of riddles and whatever else. But yeah, pretty darn good there as well. Yeah, very good acting, very cool set design. Very happy to have finally seen it. The ending, I think, is similar to Inception, how he had the top that if it kept spinning throughout the movie, that meant that he was still in a dream, but if it fell over, that means that the dream was over. But then at the end of the movie, they thought that it was all over, he wasn't dreaming anymore, but then the movie ends with a shot of the top still spinning. This one is kind of like that because if you don't want the ending spoilers, I just really want to talk about the ending. If you don't want spoilers, just skip ahead like a minute. So basically, in the movie, the other girl, the girl that survives, she says that when she dies, she wants to become a butterfly so she can follow around the people that she loves and like land on them and whatnot to know that she's still there. But then the other girl dies, the one that I wasn't expecting to die actually, and then the girl kills Hugh Grant's character, escapes from the house, and then she like goes out to the yard and starts getting away from the house. And then she like sticks out her hand, and a butterfly comes and lands on her hand, because his religion is like control, and he believes that he can like resurrect people, make them live multiple lives and whatnot. And the girl, she gets killed. He says that she can't come back alive because she had birth control. But then all of a sudden she comes back alive to finally kill him after he killed her. But then she dies again. So then the main girl escapes, and then as far as we know, if the other girl is still dead, but then the butterfly lands on her, and then she looks at her and she's like, "Oh, a butterfly." So that's like her friend. She did what she wanted, became a butterfly after death. But then also the butterfly just like despawns, like it just disappears. And then the movie ends. So realistically, what I'm thinking is the butterfly disappeared, which means that back in the house, she just respawned, like she came back alive. Because if she wanted to be a butterfly after death, and then that butterfly disappeared, that must mean that she came back alive. That's just my interpretation. So yeah. So anyway, Heretic, glad I finally watched it. I'm probably gonna put this one up in A tier as well. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was like perfect timing. All the acting was great and whatnot. But I just don't quite know about S tier. But that is about all. So I see that this video is still almost 50 minutes. So I definitely talked about the movies more than I thought I was going to. Got more in depth, like I always do. Even all these years later, I still do it. But yeah, so that is pretty much it overall. So I guess pretty much the only thing different that I didn't do in this movie or in this video was include clips. Just because like I can't like download clips. Like how I did that was I would go on YouTube, search up a specific clip, screen record it, and then I would have to like cut it out, cut off the YouTube HUD and stuff, and then insert it into my video. It was a lot of extra stuff just to insert like an 8-second clip. Especially when I'm not making any money off these videos, only getting like 100 views or whatever. It just wasn't worth it at this point in time. Because now this time I just have to put the video into my editor, put the ending screen on it, and call it good pretty much. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So glad I finally am getting this video out, since it's like the first one in 7 months. So hopefully there'll be another video at some point this year. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I'm glad to have finally done another A24 ranking videos. Even though the first two were like a couple months apart, just because I was like spam watching A24 movies at that point. But at this point, I've seen so many. I kind of just watch them. I'm hyped for some, watch them as soon as I can, go see which ones I can in theaters, but the rest I kind of just see when I can, which is just becoming a little more rare nowadays, just because I've seen so many of them. So I don't know when the next one's going to be. Of course, I will still stay on top of A24 movies. Some ones that I want to see very soon is Warfare, which comes out in theaters next month, I believe. Pretty excited for that one. And then Talk to Me. That one came out 3 years ago now. But I've been dying to see it, but it's just I didn't want to like rent it, and it hasn't come to anything. But I see that it is on Paramount Plus, so I believe I'm actually gonna watch that one tonight. So that one will probably be the first movie we will rank on the next one whenever we do that. Hopefully, it won't be another 3 years, but we'll see. And other than that, I don't know which other A24 movies are coming out recently or soon. I know Opus is coming out soon. I don't even know what that one's about. I know The Brutalist was up for a few Oscars. I haven't seen that one yet, but I do need to watch that. It's 3.5 hours long, so we'll see. But yeah, and then we'll just go from there. Yeah, so that's my ranking of these 24 more A24 movies. Officially have seen 72. Hopefully you guys kind of agreed with my rankings. If you're still watching now, I guess just comment your favorite A24 movies or something, or how many you guys have seen. I don't know exactly how many A24 has made yet, but I've definitely seen a good chunk of them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed, and yeah, that's about all. Bye.